things on buildings that I'd walked by a million times, or got on the opposite side of the street, and I was like, wow, when there's not so much rushing around you, you really take it in and probably experience it more like you do when you're doing a painting.
Yeah, it's a matter of attention and what you pay attention to, and I think artists are very good at drawing attention to things that people don't notice. And it also helps me notice. It helps me be in the moment and see what's really going on around me. Some artists don't deal with the times they're living with. They are making art that is a conversation often with art. But I am making conversation with the city and also with artists, as I mentioned, that lived quite a long time ago. And I think about that when I visit a museum and say Edward Hopper paintings, for instance. It's like, oh, I'm having a conversation with Edward Hopper about the city and how it feels to us and what it means.
That's really great. I always, sometimes when I'm walking on a street, who walked here before I did, for how many hundreds of years ago, and the things that happened in events. So I guess, Gwyneth, when this is going to wrap itself up in a couple of days, but this project will not be wrapping itself up in any kind of way. Probably you'll be continuing to do these kind of things. What do you see next? More of this, and what have been, I guess, I know your work has gone through so many, themes. I know you've done the Stations of the Cross out, in, is it Connecticut or something? Yes. And, you've studied in Edinburgh, you've done all kinds of things. And I wonder, have the evolutions been surprising to you? Did you, a visual artist, I don't know if they can totally map out their career.
No,
so.
I mean, if I look back, I wouldn't have guessed many of these transitions. They came about through the work itself, through the people I've met, through side jobs I've done. For instance, I have a long-time job as a church choral singer. That's how the Stations of the Cross project came about. And just being out in the world, as I mentioned, and meeting people, and that's how many of the commissions have come about for the construction paintings.
Right, and then I don't want to interrupt you, but the cups, it's like every day you would get a cup of coffee, and if you were at a meeting, you took notes, and you drew, and that became a whole expression. It still is. I'm sure it still gets exhibited all over.
Yeah, it had a really good run, and I felt that I followed that as far as it could take me before the building went up outside my window and took my attention in a new direction.
And it's so nice that you have the courage to just slide into new directions, and not get stuck in what is familiar. You know what I mean?
I know. There's always a feeling of risk and concern and being anxious and at sea during these transitions. I feel a little bit this way at the moment, having done these paintings of the buildings for 5 or 6 years. But I noticed that my most recent work has more greenery in it. I'm attracted to overgrown, weedy lots. Sometimes somebody has built a structure there to live in. I don't exactly know where that work is headed, and it's not on view yet, but I'm paying attention to where I want to go, and I guess more growing things are making their way back into the work. So I'm going to let that happen and see where it takes me.
Well, that's great. I want to thank you so much. And I guess in a closing, what would you say is your mission, or what would you share with somebody who's in a creative art field or any field to kind of embrace their journey and not, be sort of fearless in the way they go about it? Because
Right. I guess I would just say, don't look over your shoulder. Don't look down. Just keep showing up and make your work, and you'll find your direction in the work you make. So for me, it's all about working with my hands and seeing how I'm responding to the images I'm making and what the images themselves suggest. So don't critique it and second guess it and decide whether it's good or bad. You just have to stay in the process. And that's where all the exciting things happen. You look back over a few months or a few years and think, wow, I never expected that. and look what I've accumulated, and look what I can now show and share with the world. But the focus has to be on the process itself.